What do you think when you talk about the US market? When I'm hearing you, like you're battle tested in a very competitive Canadian market with certain like limitations on what you can and can't do. But what do you think is going wrong right now in the US that you think that you could capitalize on? Hey everyone, welcome to our latest TDR Cannabis Exclusive. Hope you're having a good week. A little bit of a pullback this week, but all is well as we focus on the US market. However, a lot of you people have reached out and said, where's HighTide? They had an earnings last week. We need to dive into that. So this is what we're doing. We're bringing in the CEO, Raj Grover, back to the podcast. It's been a while, but good to see you.
Same here, Shad. Great to be here.
Yes, Benjamin A. Smith, lead financial writer. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, nice to
Raj.
meet you.
Yeah, I know. You guys have gone back and forth on Twitter for a number of years, but finally effaced the name for both of you. But listen, we want to talk. There's interest level in this space. How's the, I guess, atmosphere at work? It seems probably a little bit more spring in your step, knowing what's happened over the last couple of weeks. It's been very promising for the industry, to say the least.
Absolutely. Definitely bubbly in cannabis all around, Shad. The office, we're a positive organization, so everyone's usually in a nice, uplifted mood. But definitely, our amazing numbers and this cash flow generation we've had and all
Yeah.
the US momentum we're hearing about, and finally the stock showing some signs of life. Super excited about the momentum. And it's definitely showing with everyone in cannabis around. You speak to anybody these days, and they're like, yeah, finally there's signs of life. And we may not be stuck here forever, which I've always known. You continue to execute and things will happen. And,
Yeah.
now we see that happening all around us.
We've touched on this big conference coming up next week in Chicago, Benzenga. I was, as I said in a previous podcast, very grim, the atmosphere in Miami last April. However, I was looking at the lineup of people that they have set up next week. It's packed. So that goes to show the shift in the momentum. But before we get into that, let's press rewind and go over the news from late last week involving your latest earnings, which was your third quarter 2023 financial results. Some of the highlights included, as you said, positive free cash flow of $4.1 million, advance of stated goals, and same store sales increased by 19% year over year and 8% sequentially. So overall, not a lot of companies cash flow positive in the Canadian market. How did you feel about the report? I'm assuming you were happy.
Thrilled to say the least, right? And Shad, you've spoken to me before. I've come on your show before. This is not new to HighTide. It's just that it takes time to get noticed, and in a depressing industry or a depressed landscape, it takes even longer to get noticed. But our same store sales have been growing at a tremendous rate. Over the last 7 quarters, we're up almost 114% in same store sales, including this last quarter. We grew 8% sequentially. And even if you take it calculated daily, we grew at 5% quarter over quarter, which is annually, it's still 20%, which is any retailer's dream. So I cannot tell you how excited I am about it in terms of free cash flow generation. Another very proud moment for HighTide. How many players can you tell me in Canada that have ever achieved this milestone, or even in the United States, right? We can almost count on our fingertips. And now we're one of them, and in a very meaningful way as well. And Shad, I was questioned, Raj, why such aggressive growth? And you're a retailer, but then you have your diversified ecosystem. And are you really focused enough, or are you growing too fast? And today we've proven a point here. If we didn't have this size and scale, we wouldn't be the beneficiaries of generating this meaningful free cash flow that we have from our operations. So everything we've done, everything we've executed on or said we are going to do, we head down, laser focused, executed on that approach. And, we've created a winning recipe here.
Yeah. Ben, I know you had some questions about the Canadian market and how they're cash flow positive, so fire away.
Yeah, is that environment, especially in Canada, that is a very tough milestone to achieve. There are companies that are not even adjusted EBITDA positive, let alone free cash flow positive. So, I always find that to be a tremendous achievement. Is this something that can continue? Can you get all the way to, say, net income positive territory if you don't have any extraordinary write-downs at all? Do you think that is your next goal, and is that achievable in the future?
Look, Ben, it's definitely achievable in the future. In fact, becoming net income positive is the beacon for any company, not just a cannabis company. But let's be real here, right? Let's compare apples to apples. If we're going to grow, which is the innings that we were in previously, aggressive growth was required to have the size and scale to, get to a number where you can start generating cash. It takes time. It took us 5 years to get to a point where we could have 156 locations today, and then the mature locations start generating cash. But if I didn't have that growth, could I ever get to free cash flow generation? No. It's the same thing with net income positive. My loss from operations was $662,000, but it had a depreciation and amortization expenses of $8.5 million. I mean, it's part of doing business,
Yeah.
right? We are still growing. We're growing companies. We need financings from the market. You have to issue equity kickers to, get these type of financings. It ruins your net income. But it's like the chicken and egg. Am I going to grow a winning model that I have in my hands, or I'm going to start worrying about becoming net income positive, which is almost impossible to do if you stop growing? If you have the winning recipe, you're going to let your competitors get ahead. But let me tell you, I'm very, very focused on continued free cash flow generation. At the same time, we need to go back to growth again, because we can't just get ourselves in a bit of a stalemate here. We need to start growing responsibly, always be free cash flow positive, which may vary in quantum drastically, and eventually get to that net income milestone, which I believe every public company and even a private company, that is what we all aim for.
You have 156 locations now, you said?
156. That's right.
When you talk about competitors, who's even remotely close to that amount in Canada? Is there?
Well, a corporate-owned portfolio, only us, Shad. There is SNDL that has a large franchise-owned portfolio.
True.
Look, we're not in the franchising business, totally different business model, right? They also have 4 or 5 different brands. We have one brand. We're very focused on what we do. I've always said that I'm focused on one brand. We found our winning formula in the discount club model we've created, which is, kind of tied to our overall diversified ecosystem and the strengths we have within that ecosystem. So my business model is different from everybody else's in Canada, and potentially also in the United States. And I can't wait for the US market to open up soon enough so we can show what we can do in the US.
Huh. So you've actually hinted that in a recent interview on BNN Bloomberg that you do want to enter into the US market. Am I understanding that correctly?
No doubt about that. I've said it multiple times now. I think people have heard me as a broken record saying that I want to be the top 5 MSOs in the United States. It's a big achievement, no doubt. It's a big goal to have. But I always say, you don't aim for the stars, you're not going to build your skyscrapers. We've proven that in Canada. So all we got to do is take our winning formula, not get overly excited about jumping the gun today's, getting into optionality agreements right now, when we are perfecting the recipe here and we have a winning formula. And when that market opens up, it's basically plug and play for us. We're already doing that in this country, so I don't think it'll be too difficult for us.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of that formula, Raj, HighTide is sort of known for having a good consumer experience, but also operating on a very fiscally responsible way. And that's allowed you to generate this free cash flow and so forth. So do you think that model is the way? Have you perfected that model where you are going to keep costs as reasonable as possible for a cash conscious consumer, but still, foment a very good experience for them where they want to, come back and you have, good return sales metrics?
Yeah, look, Ben, you can, in my opinion, as a retailer for over 20 years, you can never ruin the customer experience. Customer focus should be absolutely number one. And this is how we built our stores. It's a very open, retail-friendly customer layout. And then we know what our customers want. Everyone wants great weed, but cheap weed. So we provided that to them. And in a gorgeous store, you don't have to go to a real discount-looking store to get discounted weed. You can look cool, you can buy high-quality products. If you do it at a volume, you can satisfy all of these things for your customers. So that is what we are doing to save costs. Our company started with a $50,000 investment, Ben. Just with a 500 square feet shop, which was an independent accessory shop that started in 2009. So I've had to mind my cost all along. We organically built this company to 2018, And the first time I ever raised any funding was when we decided to take the company public. And I believe the first round was in April of 2018. So I organically built the company until then, built a distribution business, built a corporate and franchise model of smoking accessory stores, had celebrity partnerships in paraphernalia businesses, did all of that stuff very successfully. But the one thing I'd always had to do is mind my cost. And that's not changed at HighTide. I mean, you can look at our SG&A expenses. They were down as a percentage of revenue to just 5.2% in the third fiscal quarter. Year over year, I believe they were over 6.5, 6.6%. And sequentially, they were flat. But we've been coming down, constantly for quarters and years on that. So the focus is on cost, but not deteriorating the customer experience. Customer focus is absolutely paramount to us.
What do you think when you talk about the U.S. market? When I'm hearing you, like, you're battle tested in a very competitive Canadian market with certain limitations on what you can and can't do. But what do you think is going wrong right now in the U.S. that you think that you could capitalize on?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily going wrong. It's just a different nature of markets, right? So here, where a normal retail cannabis business environment can maybe generate 35% gross margins,
Yeah.
or that's on the higher side, and let's say the average is 28 to 30%. Our four wall is somewhere sitting at 20% average, or 20.5, 21% average. Some are higher, some are lower, right? Depending on the markets. It's a very, very different market shot and a very different innings that we're playing in, right? States is more, half are medical, half are recreational. Yeah. The location quality kind of sucks in the United States. I have to say, I look at some of those dispensaries where they're located in the US and I laugh.
Terrible.
They're terrible, but I wouldn't say necessarily it's the fault of the operators that have set up these shops. In some cases, maybe, which we've seen in Canada. I'm very proud of our location selection criteria. I'm personally involved in that because I know at the end of the day, it's location, location, location. You get the location right, you can literally, now with our model, I can literally go to the most saturated town as long as I have the best location in that town, and then I will make sure everyone starts to gravitate towards Canna Cabana. That is a little bit difficult with the current setup in the United States. Dispensaries are like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 square feet, which I've also never understood. But in their defense, because of the innings they played in, there's only one, few and far between, and they get all of the crowd coming to that one dispensary, so they need 5,000 square feet. That is not our model. So we have a different approach in mind, Shad. I'm keeping some of that strategy to myself so I can surprise my American friends a little bit. But it'll definitely be a little bit of a differentiated approach. And I don't think that operators in the US right now have done a tremendous job with location selection criteria.
Interesting feedback.
Now, one of the things I've always noticed too, Raj, is during your press releases for your quarterly earnings, you always mention the the Cabana Club members, and you put those metrics on there for your online platform and membership. And most companies, of course, don't do this. And we all know it's about big data, right? That that big data is where you can get information, you can help drive different things that you want to do, initiatives that you want to do. So you've surpassed 4.6 million people worldwide. So my question to you is, how are you using this data to your advantage to drive sales and to foment repeat business?
Oh, that's a great question, Ben. So, 4.6 million customers is an international ecosystem. So we have 1.1 million members of the Cabana Club, which is roughly 12 to 14% of Canadian marijuana users, excluding the province of Quebec, where they don't allow us to conduct private retail. What we want to do is, and out of the 4.6 million international, we have 3 million living in the US through our consumption accessory and CBD.
Wow.
Right? Exactly. And no one's looking at this, and none of my MSO friends have this sort of customer base that we already do by design. We were in the consumption accessory business for over 14 years now, so nothing's changed in that front, and we've been accumulating these customers. But who are these people that are buying pipes, bongs, vapes? They're using cannabis, right? And we already have them as our customers, and now more than half of the Canadian provinces allow online cannabis sales. I think it's going to become very similar after federal legalization takes place in the US, and we are going to start converting these customers into cannabis customers. We recently launched cannabis seeds in the US. We had to stop because of a payment processing issue. We're restarting those sales again because we found another payment processor. It's going to start happening again. But clearly we started getting a lot of momentum on that because it's the same customer that's buying pipes and bongs, and even CBD is an extension of the cannabis plant or the hemp plant. So that's very, very beneficial to us. And Ben, to your point, how are we using this big data? We are in touch with our customer through text and emails at least 3 times a week in Canada, at least 2 to 5 times a week on our e-commerce platforms in the United States.
Yeah.
And what we want to do, I have a really interesting concept in mind, which we are working on, is we want to extend our Cabana Club community into a global Cabana Club community, so international Cabana Club. And we're going to tie it all into, Cabanalytics Consumer Insights, which we just recently launched. We basically created the HighTides of cannabis and given it to 1.1 million members. What does it do to all of the accessory brands and the CBD brands and the seed companies and the hydroponic companies and even the licensed producers? They want to be front and center to our very targeted, very in-tuned customer base,
Right.
which we have as part of our ecosystem. So do they want to be in that magazine? Yes, they want to. And there's a price to be in that magazine. Obviously, subject to all provincial and federal regulations. I have to say that I sometimes get in trouble for that. So, given that disclaimer, we have a lot of opportunity there. And what we're going to do is we're going to tie up all of these members internationally. And then it's going to, I've said this before, it's going to become kind of like a closed Apple ecosystem. We're going to sell them everything cannabis.
It's a
So
great name.
it almost seems like you have like a latent market there for when you enter the US, because you already have 3 million members in the US
know,
who
it's
are
huge.
familiar with the brand, right? So you have a segue like in there already.
Absolutely. I mean, 1.1 million members in Canada, and we're generating over $450 million in sales from a brick and mortar ecosystem. That's just 1.1 million. If we are able to convert just half of that in the US, that's already $500 million of sales that may gravitate our way, right? And even if it's state by state, Ben, we have such sophisticated e-commerce platforms. Our
That's
e-commerce
that's it.
infrastructure is very sophisticated that we feel that we can turn on the tap in a particular state, turn off the tap in a particular state if needed.
It's e-commerce. Knowing e-commerce, if you know it, the benefits from that. And I don't really see a lot of that conversation, I think, in the space right now. But from what I'm hearing, you probably are doing it better than most in this industry, right?
Look, being the leader in brick and mortar and having 156 locations and going after more and more locations, our long-term plan here in Canada is at least 250 locations, and we will breach that, I think. Still, our eyes on the other side are on e-commerce. That is the future.
Yeah.
We already know what Amazon is all about, and we would want our fair share on the online side as well. We want to make things convenient for our customer, but we want to give them such high quality products at such a diversified scale,
Yeah.
accessories, CBD, cannabis, that when they think any of the, anything to do with the hemp or cannabis plant, they're thinking HighTide.
Who came up with the name Cabana Club?
I'm good with coming up with names, so I'll take the credit for that. But most of the names, HighTide also had a funny story. How HighTide was born on my birthday. Speaking to Andy, our chief revenue officer.
Yeah.
It was a really funny story. But I usually come up with some cool names.
You ever done any branding opportunities at the Caravana event in Toronto midsummer? Like, that's a global event, and I'm sure there's a ton of influencers and celebrities that you could tie yourself around pertaining to that. And like I said, the Cabana Club type name kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. We did Caravana a couple of years ago, or about 3 years ago, and then COVID came, and since then we haven't. But Shad, what we've been really doing really well is do a lot of functional marketing. So my approach to marketing, and Andy completely agrees with me, is we gave away a car on 420 April 20th at 4:20 p.m. and it was a $42,000 Toyota Prius, right? So we did that, and I got an exponential number of signups because of that.
That's
and
great.
And this is the type of marketing initiatives that we do. We pass these insane discounts to our customers. You come and purchase an accessory at our store, you're going to see a market price. You'll see this very, very cool looking vape, for $200 in the market. You'll see it for $60 at Canna Cabana, or a $300 bong. You'll see it for $55, and your mind will be blown. So we're passing these discounts to the customer because we do a lot of surveys to our customers, and what was revealed is that 32% of all of our business comes from word of mouth, which means we're doing something right in our stores, and people are talking to their friends, they're talking to their family, like, this is the shop you need to go to if you want anything cannabis. So this is where we spend our marketing dollars. Shot.
Smart. Love the energy.
My last thing over here, Raj, is I want to go back to at the beginning, or a couple segments ago, where you said that you were, selling accessories and so forth in around 2009. Are you the original purveyor of this company when it was private? Are you the original person? Because I feel that's important, because and a lot of the times you see in the industry that executives come over after the company goes public or after they get bigger. But are you like one of the original purveyors of this company?
Oh, absolutely. HighTide's predecessor, Smoker's Corner, was started by me with a $50,000 investment in 2009 when I
Wow.
was on a body jewelry seeking trip in India and Indonesia. It just happened to be an accident, and I stumbled across glass pipes and bongs and stuff, and I had no idea how these things could sell, but I knew there was a market in Canada. Took a gamble with $10,000, shipped the stuff back home through DHL. By the time I got back, it was already here. I had good sales skills, which I still do. Moved it in about a week and said, okay, I need to rinse and repeat this again,
Wow.
very good margins. And that's how Smoker's Corner was born. And that was about 14 years ago now. And, never looked back and organically built that business. I come from a business background. All my family members from mom's side and dad's side are all business people. So business came easy for me. But absolutely, it's been all organic growth right from the beginning. And that's how we turned Smoker's Corner into HighTide eventually.
Wow.
What did you
Great story.
what did you do prior to this?
So prior to this, I was in the fashion accessory space. I also had a restaurant, I had a convenience store. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Also had a distribution business, and that's how I used to do all the overseas tours to India and Indonesia and Thailand and China and all over the place, and Europe, and just whatever was cool, whatever sold, kind of had the knack of picking the right product. And in Niagara Falls, I was distributing in Niagara Falls at the time, and realized a lot of the shops were carrying these pipes and bongs. And
Right,
when I
really?
came across it in New Delhi, the market that I was in, there was a shop that was selling glass by the kilo. So you could buy a smoking pipe,
Yeah.
buy as many as you want, put it on a weighing scale, and take it for 35 cents a pipe. And we retail that pipe for $20, not at Canna Cabana. We retail that for a lot less because we are the discount retailers for good products. But when I started, the retail price was around $20. This is going back 14 years. And I was like, wow, the margin's insane in this, although the volume was not there, and it's still not at the levels where I would like to be because it's not a mainstream business yet. But imagine the potential that we have. If we can do this in Canada, such a tiny market, what happens when Asian markets open up and South American markets open up and European markets open up? There's big opportunity here.
What do you think if there is actually rescheduling and safe banking were to pass? Does this go full on mainstream in North America within a year or two?
Yeah, if rescheduling happens, and we've spoken to NASDAQ, and NASDAQ wants to retain the business and wants to do more business in the cannabis industry. So rescheduling happens, and there's some safe harbor language included for the exchanges.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a game changer for companies like HighTide and even more companies that want to list on the big exchanges, which is all of the US MSOs. I'm sure it's their dream to be on the NASDAQ. We're already there. That's our advantage, right? People underscore the opportunity that we have in NASDAQ in terms of liquidity, et cetera. We're a Canadian name. So, we've been ignored for a very long time. But when you have free cash flow coming out, meaningful free cash flow coming out at a 5 months ahead of schedule that you promised the market, I mean, we are starting to get those eyeballs. So that'll help a lot, Shad. But once the exchanges allow that, I think it could, from rescheduling point, it could get into full federal legalization maybe within a year or two of that.
Need to get Raj in front of all these people, all these politicians, get them excited with lots of energy. But the energy is great. One thing's for sure, I can tell based on this podcast, is that every day you wake up, you are hustling. It sounds like you're working your butt off. And obviously it's starting to show based on your latest earnings. But listen, appreciate you checking in. I hope our viewers got a great response, or I should say great feedback or great experience through this podcast and helpful information. But best of luck moving forward. Let's see how things materialize over this fall. And most importantly, let's keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Shard. Thanks,
all right.
Ben.
Thanks, Raj. So what'd you all think of the interview? Did you like what we recorded with our guests? Then leave a comment below and let us know what you thought of it. And if there's any more questions you want us to ask, as usual, share this video with your network. Click on that bell for all notifications. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel because we would not be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.